Hello everyone and welcome to EVTN News. This week there was not a ton of news, but there are some stories that are a little bit longer, so bear with me on these. And yeah, you'll get some good information. So, on July 27th, Reverend Peter Daly, a retired priest of the Archdiocese of Washington, recalled on the Distorter, National Catholic Distorter Online.org, how Cardinal Wilton Gregory of Washington came to celebrate an LMNOP Eucharist on January 22nd. The Cardinal retired on January 6th. So before that, in September 24, Gregory received 3 LMNOP activists, Sister Janine Gramick, I think that's of New Ways Ministry, Frank D. Bernardo, and Reverend Daly. Daly asked Cardinal Gregory if he would be willing to preside over a liturgy of reconciliation between the Archdiocese and the LMNOPQ plus community. He said yes without hesitation. According to Father Daly, the LMNOP liturgy in January was solemn. So I don't know, I guess there weren't people dressed up dancing in the sanctuary, I don't know. Men dressed like women, but anyway. Scriptures were read by LMNOPQ plus activists, and some people cried. At the end of the homily, Cardinal Gregory asked for forgiveness on behalf of his predecessors for their treatment of LMNOPs. Cardinal Gregory abolished several holy masses in the Latin Rite in 2022 at multiple parish locations, consolidating all masses into just 3 centers, and he will celebrate LMNOP liturgy. But do you think you will catch him at a Latin Mass? No. So it kind of goes to show where their priorities are of the corruption network. But again, McCarrick, no one is accusing him of being Catholic. Okay. And so Cardinal's celebrating an LMNOP Mass, but hold that thought because we'll get to some decent news near the end of this show. Father Ludwig Peter Ludvigsen announced on Pax et Bonum website that Sunday Mass in the Roman Rite and the Latin Rite in Gothenburg, Sweden will temporarily cease in effect from August 10th. He is a priest of the Third Order Regular St. Francis and is superior of the local community in Gothenburg. The Latin Masses were usually celebrated at 12 p.m. on Sundays with an additional Novus Ordo at 10 a.m. Father Ludvigsen cited some tensions or misunderstandings that may have arisen among the faithful of the diocese as the reason for the cancellation. He said, "We are concerned that these..." Oh, my screen shut off. I apologize for that. I think it's been doing that a little bit recently, which is really disappointing. This really isn't a bad device. I don't know what's going on. He said that there may that some tensions or misunderstandings may have arisen among the faithful of the diocese as the reason for the cancellation. He said, "We are concerned that these tensions or misunderstandings may harm the unity of our community." Okay, that's pretty concerning that a priest would say that about a Latin Mass, because I think the tensions and misunderstandings that harm the unity of the community are whenever bishops ban the Latin Mass. But I don't know. Apparently he doesn't see that. He added that the decision had been made after consulting Cardinal Anders Arborelius of Stockholm and following the advice of TOR Minister General Armando Trujillo Cano. This is pretty sad, and honestly pretty sad that Latin Mass is being canceled here, just because everyone's against it, it seems like. So gotta find different Latin Mass, I guess, because banning this is, yeah. I mean, there's not the excuses that he gives are actually really pathetic. But I wonder how many attend that mass and how many he's letting down. And it just shows that in the Novus Ordo, the unity, false unity, is definitely a priority. There's no unity with LMNOP blessings. There's no unity with communion for adulterers. And there's no unity with what we'll talk about later. All right, so John Henry Westen came back firing, literally. A few people at LifeSite lost their jobs, and it wasn't John Henry. And I don't want to say lost their jobs. Although I'm not sure about the one woman who's Orthodox on the board of directors. I would imagine she's not going to be around much longer. John Henry Westen did write an article. You can see the link below. He said, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he did address some concerns, and I've reported on these, so I'm going to report it again. He said, I'd like to take a few minutes to explain what's been happening as much as I'm able without interfering with the internal investigation currently underway. As many of you know, on July 2nd, in the context of a LifeSite News Board of Directors meeting, several members of the board supported my removal as CEO, and from the board of directors, I was blindsided and afforded no opportunity to defend myself from a premeditated effort that involved a series of false accusations and misleading assertions. False testimony and distorted statistics were used to sway a slim majority of the board of directors against me. By July 16th, by the grace of God, the chairman of the board of directors had concluded that the events of July 2nd had been null and void due to several procedural defects. Those who had offered false testimony in an effort to deceive the board of directors simply had not bothered to obey the bylaws that govern LifeSite News. In the interim, however, some defamatory accusations had been made public. First, the allegation of personal profit related to the purchase of a building in Ontario was completely 100% false. Second, I was falsely accused of inflating the cost of a particular expense when asking a donor for $80,000 for a project that would only cost us $10,000. This too was completely false. And he went on to explain that this is not true, because he explained to the donor that it would cost $10,000, but it was a deal that was worth $80,000. Anyway, so basically it seems like some of the board members kind of twisted some of this stuff. He said, third, with respect to the fact that two of my daughters are employed by LifeSite News, being a co-founder doesn't mean my children are disqualified from working for the mission I helped build. Of course, I recuse myself from their hiring decisions. In fact, one of my daughters joined LifeSite News as a major gifts officer during a critical staffing shortage. She left a secure full-time career and took a $35,000 pay cut in order to serve the mission. So, also, Deacon Keith Fournier is apparently no longer with LifeSite News. He did post a video, an article, saying that the Pachamama Mass, that was the Mass of Creation, is great. Everything's great in the Leo Church, and so he will fit very well with, I don't know, the Pope's Planner crew, or Vatican II is awesome crowd, but for the rest of us, that's not what people want. Now, as for John Henry Westen, I guess we'll see the return maybe to prophecy, running with different prophecies, and not a fan of that. Definitely not a fan of that, but I was wondering what direction LifeSite News was going to go, and once John Henry Westen is gone, I guess we won't find that out, because he's back with the vengeance, and there's a purge. Now, what that also means is that Deacon Keith Fournier, I've listened to his personal story, and he's a Novus Ordo deacon, of course, married Novus Ordo deacon, and he moved to Tyler, Texas, so that he could serve Bishop Strickland, and of course that's a questionable decision because everyone knew that, um, once Strickland started speaking out, that Francis was inclined to remove him, and he did, and so Fournier was kind of lost at that point. And it's kind of similar to any seminarian that joined Tyler, Texas, hoping that they'd be ordained by Bishop Strickland. Kind of a short-sighted view because, the Francis Church is playing the long game, and it's just it's kind of sad to see. Anyway, so that's that. He's no longer with them, and Strickland's probably not going to be writing for LifeSite News anytime soon either. But he could find his own way to do things, and we'll see, and hopefully, people mend their fences and work things out, and yeah. So anyway, LifeSite News is probably going to look a little bit different than it did before, but John Henry is the face of LifeSite News, and that's not going to change anytime soon. All right, so moving over to a different network, EWTN. This is EVTN, but the EWTN, the one that has a much higher budget. So there is this was announced by the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Join us August 5th. Is that tomorrow? I believe so. Yes, it'll be Tuesday, August 5th, 12:15 p.m. I believe there's Central Time. So calculate your time zone based on that. For a pontifical mass with Cardinal Burke, Our Lady of the Snows, I believe that's the feast. This will be a pontifical mass, high mass with Mass of the Americas, written in 2018 by American composer Frank LaRocca. His Eminence Raymond Cardinal Burke will offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass, accompanied by a sublime Mass setting for large choir, soloists, and orchestra. This music creates a rich tapestry of Gregorian chants and 18th century folk melodies of Mexico. Okay, that's going to be interesting. Archbishop Corteleone will be there as well. And the Mass will be live broadcast on the EWTN television network. So tune into EWTN, or I'm sure it'll be on the on YouTube after the Mass is concluded. You'll be able to view it after the fact as well. So definitely tune in for that, because the last time EWTN tried to film or live stream a Mass, a Latin Mass, was just a few years ago in the Archdiocese of Washington at the National Basilica. And I've talked about Cardinal Gregory earlier in this broadcast, and he was the one that shut it down 2 weeks before it was scheduled. And he arbitrarily shut it down. No questions about that. And yeah, so good to see EWTN is going to be picking up this. That'll be really nice, and hopefully people that normally watch EWTN will tune into it, and hopefully they'll appreciate it, or start asking questions, and maybe they'll start watching more channels like this. Not that it's really that big of a deal for me, but for them, I hope it'll be a big deal for them. All right, and the last story. At their plenary assembly in Kigali, Rwanda, from July 30th to August 4th, the African bishops discussed a document about accompaniment of persons in polygamous situations. They're generally solid on these types of issues, but in this case, the document shifts from excluding polygamous sinners to offering graduated pastoral statuses. What that means, it introduces a new canonical pastoral category, the permanent catechumen. A person in polygamous relationships may be accepted into the church community without receiving the sacraments but with formal recognition and continued pastoral care. So you can keep showing up, and you'll be accepted. We'll take your money, but you can't have the sacraments. That sounds great. That's fantastic. Do you think any of the priests are going to preach against polygamy in those parishes? You think they're going to preach the Catholic faith? And it's really sad to see. It's pretty sad to see. Okay. Well, all right. And I see that the Vatican website, I think I mentioned this before, the one that announces the bishops, the one that announces the bishop appointments, I see that they are, yeah, I see that these I see that these bishops, or the bishop appointments are back on the Vatican website. Let's see, like I think it was, what's the night? How long ago is the 19th? Like 2 weeks worth of 2 weeks worth of appointments and audiences with the Pope are posted now. So I guess the person who runs the website is now back from his or her vacation. Must be nice. I'll take a vacation sometime, but in fact in the fall. And you did see though that I posted a video about just driving in the middle of nowhere. That was kind of neat. And I mean, I gave a shout out to Father Mark Goring, and yeah, I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything on this channel, but guess what? I don't care, because he's the reason why I started this channel, and yeah, so I like his outdoor videos. What else can I say? It's good stuff. So anyway, all right, until next time, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity. We will not be silent.